Sunday Live, back with you on the Average Joe Sports Show. That is Gary Sharp. That is Bill Doleman. That's Elijah Herbel. He never leaves the studio. Chris Schmidt.
Only to umpire. Only to
umpire. Only to ump. How was it yesterday, man?
Hot. I was hot, sweaty. I'm hydrated, though. Back at it today. Today is not as warm, so that's lovely. But, yes, the defining word for yesterday was hot.
Okay. Sharpie, how was your Saturday?
Good. You know what? We were all dreaming about college football the entire day, weren't we?
We were. Billy D, any more beach plans? You swing the clubs? Did you wrestle an alligator? I mean, what happened down in SEC country?
There's always beach plans, and you can just kind of, on a whim go to the beach, which is the idea. However, we decided yesterday to make some plans to join you out in Las Vegas for Big Ten Media Days. So we'll be out there doing the Average Joe Sports Show on Nebraska Day. After that, I got no use for you, and we're just going to, enjoy our time out in Vegas for a couple of days. But yes, we will be out there for the Average Joe Sports Show.
I'm going to sneak in before the flight leaves Wednesday, probably a second day of Big Ten Media Day coverage.
Oh, okay.
Because, well, there's probably some opponents we want to talk to, don't you think?
And by that, he means the blackjack table. A second day of
no. Me and the blackjack table aren't friends, nor do we get along. I'll follow your lead on Vegas. I'll take notes from you, Sharpie. Elijah, have you been out there?
Yeah, I went out for the John Jones and Cyril Gane fight before John Jones got into another run-in with the law and retired, which was the news.
We air quoting retirement?
No, I don't think the UFC is going to let him back this time. We'll see, though. For a long time, he was their golden child, and now he refuses to fight and also gets in trouble with the law. So John Jones would have been the greatest of all time if he didn't get in his own way. Regardless, I got to see his comeback at heavyweight. That was cool. Got to lose way too much money at the blackjack table. And I don't plan to be back anytime soon unless we make it out for the Bud Crawford fight. That's what I want to go out to Vegas for.
Well, let's stay on Bud for a second because I wanted to bring this up yesterday and didn't. But Bud's really quiet most of the time, especially at pressers. I mean, he's confident, but Sharpie, I mean, he was pissed at the presser, where he was just absolutely letting Canelo know it's going to happen when he stomps him. And, I mean, really, I've not seen Bud that intense in a long time.
He usually is pretty low-key, and he's also not a big promoter.
Yeah.
But I think he also feels like people are ignoring him. Now, he hasn't fought for a while, but he just reminded people that he's still Bud Crawford. I do like, the fact that they are promoting this fight more like a UFC fight, like in terms of the promotion, because Bud isn't a big guy that likes to promote. He just likes to go and box. But this fight needs some promotion because it's great for the sport. I can't wait. This could be multiple trips for Nebraska media out to Vegas, whether you're going for the summer league. Okay. You get to see Bryce Williams play, or you're going to go for media days. You're going to go for Bud Crawford. I mean, Houston Christian, Bud Crawford, okay. But then, CBSSports.com projected Nebraska to be playing in the Las Vegas Bowl, which has been moved to, 12:30 local time on New Year's Eve? Oh, there'd be some people wrecked in GBR Nation if Nebraska was in the Las Vegas Bowl.
Who is the opponent?
Arizona State.
Yes, ASU. Follow from playoff grace for ASU. But we owe them one, don't we, for 96?
Yeah, for stealing Nayland Scott, I guess, the other day. So there's a little more on that fight, if you will. That'd be a good bowl game. The thing about bowl games, like, if you're not going to be in the playoff, or you're not going to be in one of the big boy bowls or the big mower bowls, you don't want to be in one of those that, like, the week after the Army-Navy game, then you're in a bowl game, and then it's done like December 15th. Any bowl game after Christmas, and preferably right around New Year's or a little after, that gives you the buildup, gives us something to talk about, more importantly, But when those teams that have bowl games that are like mid-December or pre-Christmas, it's almost like there's just an extension of the season by a week and not a bowl game.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see how many bowl games survive and thrive and continue. I think Dana Holgerson had a hell of an idea, a couple of different ideas. One was to flip things around, and instead of doing some bowl game nobody cares about that isn't of the playoff realm or all right, next best thing that you're settling on, why not do an NIL prize pack to the week 0 part of the season where your team can win a NIL prize pack of money against a really good non-conference team and opponent to kick off your season. I think that works, and I think
you could call it the college football crown,
right? And I think the crown part of things could be something you do for these bowl games too, to make sure guys stay active. Is that the way to put it?
Yeah. We didn't have as many, Boston College had a key opt-out, but it didn't seem like this year we had as many opt-outs. Those bowl games, I think tried to keep guys around, but I don't remember like a plethora of opt-outs where we went, oh geez, it just changed the game. It was more coach opt-outs.
Fair. No, and it didn't make me sad if I'm a Nebraska fan that Ezeraku didn't try and get sacked 21, 22, 23, 24 against Nebraska. It's the Average Joe Sports Show Sunday Live. Great to have everybody in. Did not get these in yesterday. We will get our starting 5 shout outs here. Appreciate you all. And Corn Raider is in. Brian Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, as is Jeff Snitley. David is here. David, good to have you. Is it football season yet? Asking for a friend. Andrew in. Arlo in. Mike checking in from Cali. Bruce from Spearfish. I'd love to be golfing in Spearfish right now. Not that I don't want to be hanging out with you fellas, but Andrew here. Tyler says happy from Toronto. The happy Sunday from Toronto Row in North Dakota. All right, Tyler.
What's Toronto Row?
Yeah. Do you know that, Sharpie?
I don't know.
No.
Got me.
Game Dog in. Good to have you, Game Dog. Captain is here. Captain, what's up? So we'll get to it here. July 1st, around the corner with the official revenue share, $20.5 million. That is something to talk about. But I do want to ask this question, and I have an over-under to chew on here. What do you believe about the Big Ten in 2025? And I want to ask this question, 3.5 over-under on playoff teams. As we talk in July, are you going over or under that 3.5 number with playoff appearances for Big Ten squads?
I'll jump in first here. I like the over personally. And
they get 4 or 5?
4 is the number.
4.
I think we talked last summer with Brandon Vogel about this, and he looked at the 4-team playoff era. And throughout, if you were to gauge who is the top 12, and that's not perfect because you're going to have bid stealers and whatnot, teams winning conference title games and group of 5 teams that aren't necessarily in the top 12. So it doesn't work out perfectly. But it was just over 3.6, I think, was the average number of Big Ten teams that finished inside the top 12 during the 4-team playoff era, which means 2 out of every 3 years you're going to get 4 in, and then 1 out of every 3 you're going to get 3 in. To me, it feels like a 4-team with that. You have a couple shoe-ins. With, I think Penn State and Ohio State are likely to be shoe-ins. Oregon's probably going to be there as well. And then I like one of Iowa as a team. I think could be a sneaky college football playoff contender. You look at Michigan. Can they get things right? Nebraska. There's a plethora of teams I think could come in and steal that 4th spot. But I look at 4. Wouldn't be necessarily surprised with 3. But I think with the 2 shoe-ins already, you'll have a couple teams that'll rise. That's the Big Ten every single year. Who's the team that is in the middle of the pack that's going to rise up? Illinois is another one I didn't mention.
Do you get the benefit of the doubt? A if you're a 9-3 Michigan team with that schedule that you faced, that's assuming that Michigan doesn't keep falling. We know Indiana got the benefit of the doubt because they were an 11-win football team, but would a 10-win Illinois, would a 10-win Iowa get the benefit of the doubt over an SEC team? And that's the question we're going to have to face someday. We'll see if Nebraska can put a run together where they're knocking on 9 or 10, or at least in playoff contention in November. I think I'm going with the under, because I think right now, despite the fact you've won 2 national championships in consecutively with the Big Ten, I think Oregon and Ohio State and Penn State are your shoe-ins. And if your name is not Michigan, or you're a team that is at 10-2, I say, as that 4th Big Ten team, I think you may get aced out this year, just because some of the blowback and some of the stomping, the whining, the complaining the SEC has done. That's just maybe a gut feel for me.
Let me ask the question, though, and we can get back to this conversation. We call both Ohio State and Oregon shoe-ins, and I do believe Ohio State, probably because they won the national championship last year, they'll get the benefit of the doubt if they're 9-3 or 10-2. That's why I think they're in. Oregon probably in the same boat as well because of recent history. They get the benefit of the doubt. But how do we feel about both those teams that have, perennially been quarterback factories, both having young, unproven guys step into the role this year? You've seen it with Moore at Oregon. He's been a guy that's played some college football before, and now he gets to take the reins of an offense that has a world of talent. Julian Sayin, less proven, but Ohio State feels like every single year has a Heisman contender at quarterback. Do we feel confident that those 2 guys are going to be ready to take the reins of their offenses? Because that's probably what it comes down to. Ohio State's got so many weapons. You just have to get them the ball. That's the question with Sayin. Dante Moore, with the offenses at Oregon, they make it easy on that quarterback pretty much year in, year out. Do we feel confident those guys are ready to step in and be college football playoff contenders from the quarterbacking position?
I think Moore could be incredible. He's so mobile. He's so gifted. If he has taken this time away to quit giving the ball away, that's his only problem. That's what drove Chip Kelly nuts. And it was.
But he looked good. He looked good in that offense, though.
Didn't he? Yeah.
He's basically a red shirt. You redshirted him last year to play behind Gabriel. I think he'll be really, really good. I think Oregon's going to be a problem. I think Ohio State has enough around their quarterback that their quarterback can, do you ease into the job at Ohio State? Everybody says that he is the real deal. So they've got enough weapons around him where he doesn't have to be the guy right away. I don't know. It's I would go 4 from the Big Ten that'll make the playoff. I really like Illinois. I think Illinois is set up to be a 10-win team, but who are those 2 losses against? Do you lose in Bloomington? Do you lose another game? Because Bielema has that 1 game a year that he loses, and you go, wow. If they can avoid that this year and they put together a pretty good resume, then I think they're in the playoff. But at the end of the day, everything about the Big Ten this year making a run to win a 3rd straight national title comes back to Penn State. Penn State pushed all their chips in. James Franklin went all in. Their AD went all in with him. And what do you need? I'm going to help you get that. And this is their year to win a national championship.
I want to ask you about Illinois. Does Illinois need Does Illinois need to get to 11, or can 10-2 do it with their schedule?
I think because they're going to be. Don't you guys think that Illinois might be preseason top 15? So it's not like they will be coming off the radar.
Yeah.
So I think that'll give them a little bit of a boost.
Look, back to Penn State. They stole Ohio State's defensive coordinator. So there's an all in with your chips to make your defense better. So that was a power move, no question about it for them. Plus the returning starter at quarterback. But I think Knowles, certainly helps them on the defensive side of the ball. But look, until there is a consortium of Grok, Gemini, Meta, ChatGPT putting the playoff field together, you talk about benefit of the doubt, which AI does not give. So as long as there are Poindexters involved in setting the field, the Big Ten is always going to get 4. The SEC is going to get 4. They can shoo the athletic director and the chairman out of the room and say, wink, wink, nod, nod. We will do this fairly. But until they allow the computers, HAL from Space Odyssey 2001 or whatever it was, or Whopper from War Games, until the computers take over, you're always going to have people putting 4 from the Power 2 into the playoff. Even if it's 12 teams, even if it's especially when it gets to 16, right? Because that's what they're going to set it up for. But as long as there are people involved in, wearing ties and watching football games together, the Big Ten and the SEC are going to be well taken care of with playoff representation. But once they let the Whopper take over and they say whatever the Whopper says or whatever Hal says, and if it spits out Western Kentucky at number 16 and everybody agrees to it, then the Hilltoppers are going to be in. But until then, Big Ten and the SEC are going to be taken care of.
I like the options you have with Sayin and Moore for sure. I think you're right that more times than not, the Big Ten will be taken care of. What about some of the air quote others? When we talk about the strength of schedule, when we talk about what this Big Ten can be moving forward. And what do you believe about Indiana? What do you believe? You've made it clear, Gary, about Illinois, what you think of them. Yeah. What do you think about Indiana? What do you think about Iowa? Where do you think Nebraska fits in?
Well, can I just quickly say, we gloss over Ohio State. And I said it before, I think they probably get into the playoff because of what they've done recently. If there is anything that's going to bite them, offensive line and running attack is not what it was last year. Like, they got I think it's a true sophomore that's likely going to be their starter in James Peoples, a younger offensive line. Obviously, you have all those weapons on the outside, but if you don't have a rushing attack, how good do you feel about Sayin to be throwing the ball around 40 times a game? Probably good. He's got a great recruiting acumen, and people say, you know what, like, he's going to be the next coming. We think he's going to be great, highly, highly rated coming out of spring and summer. But if there's one thing that bites Ohio State, it's their rushing attack. So I do want to say, watch out for that with a younger quarterback. Do you feel comfortable saying, hey, throw the ball around 40, 50 times if we need it? But Indiana, I mean, that Illinois versus Indiana game, I think it's late September. That will tell the story, I think, of both of those teams. Illinois comes in with a little bit more hype this year, maybe not in national circles, but among Big Ten circles. Are they able to handle that? You would expect with Bielema, yes, but that Indiana versus Illinois game will tell you so much about what those two teams are going to be in 2025.
Well, how good's Mendoza, right? I mean, that's another quarterback that is coming from Cal that has a lot of talent. Does he harness it? And does Signetti just kind of keep printing wow seasons?
Well, I mean, it's they still have an abundance of talent in Bloomington.
Yeah.
And they still have, new Bo Pelini as their head coach. So they're going to use that as a, chip on their shoulder. People are thinking last year was, just a blip. Indiana's going to be Indiana's going to be a good football team, but that conference schedule is a little bit more difficult. Now, the non-conference schedule is absolute garbage. And what I'd like to see this year, and this will be curious, like from the Nebraska standpoint, is does the Texas-Ohio State game to kick off the year, does that carry weight throughout the year? Now, granted, both of those teams are going to be in contention for the playoff, but does it add another benchmark to their resume if they win that game? And if all of a sudden we change and we start looking at strength of schedule, because that's what Nebraska is like. Okay, if you're not going to use strength of schedule, then we're not going to play a home and home with Tennessee. I'd like to see this year where strength of schedule, and if you play those games, you get a bump. They don't get ignored, late in the year.
No, it needs to be an insurance policy for sure. It needs to be kudos and credit for winning a game like that. And then if you don't get dismantled, if it's just a hard fought loss, don't penalize them for losing that game. Give them credit. Put them further in front of somebody in line, in my opinion, when it comes to deciding if they get into the playoff. I think it will shape the conference narrative, or it will attempt to shape the conference superiority narrative. Whoever wins that game, right or wrong, will have, a really nice check mark next to the league.
Well, and if it's the SEC, if Texas beats Ohio State, I think Bama is going to go kill Wisconsin a couple weeks later.
Well, yes.
They have them at home. I am fully expecting, because Texas, a little further along, Ohio State's offense, as I laid out, is young. They only have, I think, one total senior on their offense, needs a transfer offensive lineman. Everyone else is either juniors or underclassmen for that Ohio State offense. They might need a little bit of time to click. I'm expecting Texas to win that game in week 1, and then I'm expecting Alabama to go kill Wisconsin.
In Columbus?
Yes.
Hasn't happened since the old Vince Young era.
You have a national championship hangover for Ohio State, potentially, a younger offense that needs some experience, and a Texas team that I think it's them and Penn State, the two most talented rosters in the country. That Texas roster is incredibly talented. I'm fully expecting the early season narrative to be, well, this is the SEC's year. The last 2 years has been the Big Ten, but look what Texas did to Ohio State, the class of the SEC versus the class of the Big Ten, and then look at what Alabama did to Wisconsin. I'm expecting that in late September.
That leads into my question here. And I know if we were to have the commissioner of the SEC on, he would say they're under the SEC umbrella, so we will champion whoever champions our league. But what do you think? And I'm not putting dirt on Georgia either, but what do you think the mentality is in the SEC that Texas could be the standard bearer for that conference in year 2?
I think that rubs them absolutely wrong. We know it rubs A&M wrong. They've been in the SEC for a lot longer and still trying to get their footing. No, you're not happy. Privately, you're not happy. Publicly, go Bevo. Yay. You got Arch Manning.
No.
Wonderful.
No, I think you brought them to your league for a reason. Like if you're looking at the Big Ten, you're like, hey, you guys brought Nebraska in, and you brought Maryland in, and you brought Rutgers in, and damn, you did bring Oregon in. But I think if you're the SEC and you only brought 2 in, and one of them is what you thought, I mean, they added those 2 because of their football programs.
Yes.
So anybody that was nodding their head going, bring them on, already knew what they were getting. It just shows you the evolving of Sarkisian, that Texas might be actually who Texas should have been more consistently, for the last 15 years.
It helped too with Sark being in Bama as long as he was. He knew going in what he needed to build his program to be, from an SEC blueprint, talent, skill level. And let's be honest, it's been a long time since Texas has been that fierce and tough on the lines of scrimmage.
Yep.
And that's how he's built them.
And Red Wine brings up a point in the chat. Did Manning play a lot? Well, he played some, and there were times when he
20 career games.
Yeah, he played in, not started, but played in, and supplanted Quentin Ewers a couple of times when he was struggling. I think even the Oklahoma game, as I recall. But he's gotten snaps in 20 games, but has he been a difference-making quarterback over a long period of time in his career at Texas? No, not really. He's made some big plays. He had like an 80-yard touchdown run. But it's almost a foregone conclusion that, well, he's just going to be great, even though this is finally his team. So I think there's some question mark to that. But he, like Sayings at Ohio State's going to have a great team around him. So he's going to be the benefactor of that. There's no question.
Something back to what Elijah said. If you look at Texas roster, I mean, they have the best group of linebackers in the country. They might have the best group of defensive backs in the country. Their running backs are probably in the top 3. Schmidt was alluding to, they're more physical on the lines of scrimmage. The one thing about there's just no way that Arch Manning can live up to the hype. I mean, even winning a Heisman, you'll be like, well, why didn't he win 2 in the same year? But I look at, I mean, none of the Mannings have failed, like that have played quarterback. So he's basically a factory that they have built for this moment. So I think he will be a really good college quarterback. We still have, 9 Saturdays. I mean, by the time we get to that game in Columbus, I mean, the hype is going to be over the top. There's just no way he can match that. But I'm not doubting the guy that plays quarterback in college that has Manning on the back of his jersey.
No.
Easy, Brian Snitley. Easy.
He's more worried about pissing off Grandpa than he is his coach. I mean, when we talk about the legacy you got to uphold.
I think he is benefiting from the old Steve Young model or the Aaron Rodgers model, where you got drafted, but you got an opportunity to stay behind somebody who's a legend and really, really good. Not to say Quinn Ewers is a legend, but Arch Manning did not come out of high school in New Orleans and automatically become the starter like Dylan Raiola or like Underwood at Michigan is probably going to be the guy this year. Had he come in and been the day one starter at Texas after all of the hype out of high school, I think that would have been incredibly difficult, no matter what his last name is. Even he had been Peyton, let alone Arch. So the fact that he's actually gotten a couple of years and seems to have a pretty level head, not many players in this era of college football would wait around not just 1 year, but 2 to finally get your chance. I think that's where Texas is really going to benefit. Because he's had a chance to mature and doesn't seem to be somebody who has tried to force his way along. He's certainly been well compensated to sit there, as have some of those guys, like I mentioned, like a Steve Young, who, was in the USFL at Tampa Bay before going to San Francisco to sit for a couple of years behind Montana. And by the time Montana goes off to the Chiefs, Young is primed and ready to go. Same thing with Rodgers, playing behind Favre, waiting and waiting and waiting. I think that's a really big deal for Texas, that he's not coming in as the hype 5-star who just finished his prom last week.
Let me just ask a quick question here, because this involves Dylan. So the Manning Passing Academy is going on this weekend in Louisiana. And Arch with Nussmeier, Cooper, and Archie are in a car, and it's actually really funny. And then the guy that runs Canes. So yesterday on TikTok, they're going through all of the college quarterbacks, because, it's the college quarterbacks are instructors, but they also get instructed by Peyton and Eli. Dylan was invited. I didn't see anything about Dylan. They ran through Klubnik. Klubnik is there. The quarterback from North Carolina, Nussmeier, is there. Arch is there. The quarterback from Ole Miss is there. But I did not see any clips of Dylan.
Is Underwood there or no?
I didn't see him either.
I don't think Dylan's there.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he was invited.
Yeah, well, so is Tanner Lee. So it doesn't mean you have to.
Wow.
Now, if you remember, Elijah,
this morning.
Hey, he had a great weekend at the Manning Passing Academy.
Yes.
Well, and he was killer at Tulane too.
We spent 5 weeks talking about, man, he was great at the Manning Pass Academy. This is going to be such a great addition in 17. It's going to be awesome. And then there was the Northern Illinois game.
Pick six.
How do you throw it straight down the line? How do you not throw it forward?
Well, and then you threw a pick 6 against Rutgers the next week. The whole place went nuts. West Balcony was going to revolt. They were going to start jumping.
Which game was it? The 95-yard pick 6 in the opening drive against Northern Illinois too?
It was supposed to go to a Zigbo out of the backfield.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to go like that. Instead, it went like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never heard. That was one of the big moments where I'm like, oh, the air has left Memorial Stadium completely. So
Sharpie
fast.
turns and looks at me on the press box. Eyes get real big, and
I was like, "What the?"
You put your head down.
I was like, "It's like a true freshman makes a mistake like that when you're in the shadow of the goal line. Not a guy that had played that much football. I don't know. Everything is. We always judge quarterbacks on who they're with as their head coach. Like Tanner Lee, he was Mike Riley's last quarterback. And by the way, the last guy that was on an NFL roster that played quarterback at Nebraska, that was on like an active roster. Adrian was with the Jets and still with the Jets, but I don't know. I think, the whole quarterback thing in college will be interesting. And this is where Nebraska has to take advantage of having a guy that's already played 13 games. because they're going to play a lot of teams that's the first they're facing a first-year starter at quarterback. Not everybody is Aller. Sorsby has played a little football at Cincinnati, but Nebraska needs to take advantage of having a returning quarterback for the first time in a while.
Well, what can happen with your experience edge at quarterback if you're Nebraska? What can happen too if with your experience edge from just a confusion standpoint, if you're Butler in the defense? You better have something for all those rookie quarterbacks you're going to see. And you'll get them at different points of the season. So we'll see where their confidence is and see how much they've grown up. But hey, go mess with their head. Make them have some doubt with your game plan, and then just go get after the quarterback if you're the defensive line. I want to ask you a couple of questions, fellas. Cam Lenhart does what this season? What are we expecting about from Cam? Because I know that Keona's a name you're excited about. I know we've hit on RVP as well, and then there's the Elijah Judy discussion and Winery as well. But Lenhart's been here. Lenhart's shown some flashes. Lenhart's a guy. Is he somebody that you think can just be a nice piece, or do you believe he can ascend to a guy that is at worst an honorable all-mention Big Ten player? Does he have that ability to be stout against the run, but be a guy that showed those early flashes as a pass rusher? Remember him out in Boulder, raising hell? Can he be that same guy? Can he be a force off the edge or on the interior getting after the quarterback?
Matt Rule said something earlier this offseason. I think it was during the spring, where he was talking about the importance of making sure that the freshmen that played in year one maintain that same work ethic going into year two that they used going into year one that allowed them to play. And I wonder if Cam Lenhart was one of the guys that he's thinking of but not mentioning when talking about, what, this guy put in all the work the season before, or the offseason before his freshman year, gets on the field, looks good, and then there's that foot off the gas mentality going into year two where it's like, well, look at that, I'm playing, I've done what I accomplished. You don't necessarily have that same work ethic going into year two. And he's using it talking about Dylan Raiola and Ja'Cory Barney and Vincent Shavers. But I wonder if in the back of his mind, one of the guys he was thinking about was Cam Lenhart, because you expect a big, big jump. And we've talked to plenty of coaches about this. Players going in from year one into year two is where you expect them to make the biggest jump of their college career, because they understand what college football is. They've adjusted to the speed of the game. They have a full 12 months in the weight room. Now they get a little bit of more time to get themselves really college ready. You expect that big jump, and we didn't see that from Lenhart. So I've wondered if that was a guy that Matt Rule is kind of tongue-in-cheek referring to whenever he made that comment about, we need to make sure our guys going into year two maintain that same work ethic, because we expected a lot more from Cam Lenhart going into year two. Was he bad in year two? No, not by any means. But did he look like a much better version of his freshman year self? No, not really.
Can he be dominant? Can he be that 4-star from IMG that, man, you beat out a ton of programs for? Is he going to be a difference maker or just another dude? And I think he's got the ability to be a big-time difference maker. So it'll be fascinating to see where he goes. What kind of steps does Keona Davis make? Because he was super productive in his snap count. And then Winery, can they unlock that guy? Because he's got all the talent in the world, everyone thinks.
Yeah, I think you saw in the Pinstripe Bowl what Lenhart can be. And he can't be a rotational piece. I think he has to be a guy that starts, but he had 44 snaps in the Pinstripe Bowl. And, he primarily lined up as an edge rusher. He's gotten a little bit bigger. Can he be more than just a pass rushing guy? Because if you look at his snaps at Nebraska in 2 years, most of them have been via the pass rush. Is he a guy that can stay on the field and play all 3 downs? Because there's definitely some promise there, but is 44 snaps kind of his limit, or can he get you 55 to 60 snaps and never leave the field? But whether it's Cam Lenhart or it's that defensive line group, they need a big 2025 from him.
I'm wondering how much bigger he can get, because didn't he come to Nebraska at about 250? And I think he
6'3",
was
260 now, isn't he?
right.
Yeah.
So you're not talking about what Nebraska had with Robinson and Hutmaker, who were both 3 bills, clogging up and playing against the run really effectively. At let's say he gets to 270, is he just more of a glorified interior rusher, edge rusher, as opposed to being a reliable run stopper? And if you're going to be a reliable run stopper, then you've got to be out there, as you're talking about, an every down guy. So how much bigger can they get him to be? Now, the second thing about that is he has a new position coach, so what does, Terry Braden bring to a player like him that, and he was around the Chiefs for a long time. So I think having a new coach, you might see a new player in Cam Lenhart who maybe, he's getting a different voice now. Not that Terrence Knighton was a bad defensive line coach. Those guys loved him. But to now hear a different voice in terms of how he helped coach that defensive line and prepare players like a Chris Jones or whomever it might have been. And maybe you see a different player technically from Cam Lenhart, as opposed to, well, we just got to get you bigger so you can stop the run. And now this is your 3rd year. So he's a player that I've really enjoyed him. And I think we all agree he looks like he ought to be 35 years old driving a minivan when he comes to the podium. He looks like I think the first time he came to the podium, people thought he was a new coach. But I think that if there's one player on that defensive line that you're going to see a change from A to B with the new D-line coach, it's Lenhart. I'm excited to see that for him.
Well, it'll be pretty cool to see what he can be. And let's be honest, as much that's preached about competition, they're going to continue to go find guys and get guys. I mean, you've got a young pup. I know he's been in a bit of a brace, but I think we all are expecting things from Simpson, the defensive tackle they got this last recruiting cycle. You've got Keona, and how many guys are going to be able to be on the field and get those crucial snaps in the 4th quarter? There will be options for Coach Braden to go with who he's trusting and who can go perform. And you better make your case so you can stay on the field. Guys, I know we've touched on some Nebraska topics and thoughts. I want to kind of wind down. I know we also hit on, what do you believe about the Big Ten and the playoff? How about Michigan? Another story came out today about a lawsuit, as Jim Harbaugh is included in it. I know he's off doing his thing in the NFL now. But how unsteady do you believe Michigan football is right now? Not only with just the smoke around their program, but you've got a head coach that had a really strong finish to the year. You beat Ohio State. You beat Bama. That's a nice push to salvage what was a disappointing kind of rebuild season, not a reload. I don't believe Michigan from a talent standpoint is decimated. I think they're really, really good on the lines of scrimmage again, but they've had a boatload of dudes go to the NFL the last 2 picks. So where are they? On top of that, the keys are in the hands of a 5-star at quarterback. Michigan was a quarterback away a year ago from probably being a playoff team again. That's how good they were on the lines of scrimmage. What are they now? With their schedule, the fact that they've got roadie to Oklahoma, roadie to Nebraska in the first month of the season, and then some potential landmines with their conference schedule. So is Michigan a team that fades or kind of rises back up when we look at 2025?
I think this is the year that we – yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Bill.
No, go ahead.
Huh.
Thank you.
The thing that's interesting about Michigan, because I've always thought that maybe Sharon Moore was the fall guy. Okay, let's have a guy in here who's a good guy. We know that we're going to get hit with some things, and he's going to take the hit, and we'll say, hey, thanks, Sharon, you helped us, and then we'll go get our guy. And then you look at how they're recruiting. They're recruiting really, really well. And ideally, if you're going to start Underwood and you do have a trip to Norman, you do have a trip to Lincoln, their schedule, though, in the conference is not daunting. They're going to be deeper defensively. They're going to be better in the secondary. And you would have to imagine there's no way they can be worse than they were at quarterback last year. Now, they lost some dudes, but we're in a world where Ernest Hausman might be one of their better defensive players. I'm not ready to bury Michigan. I think they keep hanging around, and this actually might work out. But they could also walk out of September with 2 road losses. And people going, okay, are we headed to another 7-6 season again? Great that we beat Ohio State in Ann Arbor, but that's not what we do here 2 years after winning a national title.
I think there's a dark cloud over them, and because as is being pointed out, Red Wine again, the NCAA, at some point, the NCAA has to flex a little muscle and say we are relevant. They didn't do anything through the whole college basketball scandal. The last time I've checked, anytime the NCAA did anything heavy-handed, it was to the University of Massachusetts Amherst women's tennis team about 10 years ago. Otherwise, the NCAA has just kind of waited out and let things, kind of die on the vine and let college basketball do what it's done with all those coaches. And they have to have some relevance in policing college football in some way. So why not, if you're going to go after a blue blood, why not get him when they might be down? I'm sure Harbaugh, when he got wind that he was part of some lawsuit, he was probably like, when was that? When was I at Michigan? I'm totally focused on the LA Chargers. So I think that Sharon Moore has been left with something that he may have had a hand in on Connor Stallions, who knows? But I do think that the NCAA is probably going to have some semblance of a presence with that Michigan football program throughout the next year that might end up being kind of a pain in the ass and a distraction. Whatever they do on the field, that remains to be seen. I think Underwood is coming into a hype game or a hype season, much like I mentioned earlier with Quinn Ewers. Ewers had the benefit to sit. Underwood's going to be the guy, and it can be a difficult transition. And that game in Lincoln could be a very tough one for him.
What would you do? Let me ask you this: what would you guys do if you were the head coach? Would you play your true freshman, or would you sit him? How would you approach it? Put the headset on. It depends on the personality of your quarterback. And Matt Rule's like, look, we're not going to baby him. So while you had some lumps taken last year by Dylan, you feel like it's going to be a situation where you're more mentally tough now going into the second season with the ups and downs of the season because of what you went through. So I don't know. I got to really know what I've got aside from the arm talent.
Well,
right.
I say in modern college football, if you want to find out what you've got, you play him in year one. That's how it works. It's the same way in the NFL now. You want to know what you have in your rookie quarterback? You play him. You have the guys, yes, that sit. Your Jordan Loves of the world.
Look how well it's worked, though, in some extreme examples when you do sit him and you get it right.
Your Arch Mannings of the world. But also, that's just how football is nowadays. The fans, they want to see what they got in their freshman quarterback. The team wants to see what they have in their freshman quarterback. Right or wrong, that's how it goes. You find out what you have early on because the guys that it's sink or swim, and the guys that swim end up usually playing really, really well throughout their college career. If a guy sinks, yeah, it's a little easier to have him on your bench, but no one wants to see that. Within the first year whether or not you got a guy. And I feel like what we saw from Dylan Riley shows me they have a guy, and you expect improvements to happen, but everyone wants to know right away whether or not you got a guy, and you don't know truthfully until you put him on the field.
Well, and they also have, and I agree with you, Elijah. I think in this case, we don't hear much about the Fresno State transfer, Mikey Keene, who during the spring apparently was pushing Bryce Underwood, but they also brought in a new OC. So they brought in Chip Lindsey, who used to be at North Carolina. I mean, he has a history of developing quarterbacks. but I think you let him go right away. You know, you paid a lot of money, and he's supposed to be on the field. So let's see him on the field. And, you know, he'll probably look great against New Mexico week 1, and then he'll struggle against Oklahoma, and people wonder, well, is he the guy? Then the next week he'll look good, and then he'll come to Lincoln, and you hope he doesn't look good. But I think and you also got him there during the spring. You know, he's not just showing up now. He was there in the spring, and so I would think if he's that talented, he's made enough steps that, for God's sake, they were awful at quarterback last year. I mean, he's got to be, you know, at least a little bit of an improvement without ever taking a snap in college. They also did a better job of, again, you can't just let a quarterback go out there and go, hey, you got to do it yourself. They went out and got a wide receiver from Indiana, and they got Justice Haynes from Alabama as their running back. So I think they put him in a good position. It's just this is a true freshman playing college football. We saw it last year firsthand.
I think the setup is pretty important with what you laid out, what you've got around that freshman. And don't kid yourself, Mikey Keen's the insurance policy. If Underwood's lacking confidence or a turnover machine or just overwhelmed, they go to the transfer. And that was part of the agreement. When you come in, you got to have it. Nebraska, you've got Latif that's been on campus. You've got Marcos that you brought in. And, you know, how does Dylan get off to this second season when it comes to Cincinnati and beyond? I mean, yeah, you really have to ride with your guy, but you better be able to go to the bullpen if you need to.
Well, do you think Nebraska goes to the bullpen in any case that is not injury in 2025?
Yeah, I do.
I don't.
Houston Christian in the third quarter.
Hold on. Whoa, Schmidt, do you think that they would?
Go ahead. Let me clarify.
Okay.
You asked me, do they go to the bullpen if there's injury, aside from injury? Well, yeah. I don't think Dana Holgerson's the type of guy that if the quarterback isn't playing the way he wants, he's not opposed to putting someone's ass on the bench, not for weeks at a time, but he may bench a guy for a series. And if the second or third team guy comes in and performs well, you may have a chance to ride it. Above all, the job is to go win a lot of ball games this year. However that looks, we all think it's going to happen because of who your quarterback is, or be a part of the reason for success. But your offensive coordinator will not put up with a guy that isn't doing his job.
Well, if you go to the bullpen at a place like Nebraska with Dylan Riley as your starting quarterback, the firestorm that would ensue.
That's fine. You better be able to take that as a coordinator, as a quarterback, as a family. Because it ultimately is bigger than all of you, and it's about winning the football game or having a good season, however that happens.
I wonder about, this is just me thinking out loud, I wonder about the fissures that can come within a season if there is that argument within the team. Well, who is the better guy to have behind center right now?
I don't think there's a question mark right now.
Right now,
who your dude is.
If you go to the bullpen, there is. Whenever you have the golden child at quarterback.
That's fine. But in some instances, guys get benched. I mean, throughout the history of college football, elite quarterbacks have been benched. Peyton Manning's been benched. Dan Marino's been benched before. And it's happened early in their career. So you're not breaking ground here. It sucks. How do you respond to it? This is a DEFCON 2 situation for Nebraska we're talking about. But I don't think Dana puts up with BS, period. I mean, you say, well, I want to be coached hard. Well, there you go. That's part of it. I think that's healthy, to be honest with you.
And keep in mind, Peyton Manning was benched because Denver had Brock Osweiler in the wings, and they just wanted to get him on.
I was talking more about
we got to find a way to get Osweiler on the field. So if Manning's throwing an interception, we're going to get him out there.
I was talking more about Coach Mora diddly poo playoffs diatribe. That benching early in Indy where he threw 23 interceptions.
See, I think it would have been helpful last year, and this is way hindsight, and I probably mentioned it. I think Nebraska should have taken a couple of series a game last year, and just by design, sit him down, let Harburg play, get a couple series in, but do some in-game coaching as to what are you seeing? Here's what you should be seeing. And granted, he had a different offensive coordinator for the first 8 or 9 weeks of the campaign, but bring him out, let Harburg play QB, let your backup play, but do some in-game seasoning and say, look, this is what our computer says. Here's the iPad or whatever it is that they have down there, and do some in-game coaching like that, and let the other guy get some snaps in. I think that would have been really, really helpful last year for a true freshman, and not just wait till after the game is over with to do some film study. I think that's the way they should approach it with all of them. But this year you're going to see they're going to go to the bullpen in the third quarter against Houston Christian, and that's probably the only snaps backups are going to get, barring injury.
Yeah, I'm not trying to stir the meth lab for the sake of stirring the meth lab here. I believe that. And that to me is more about Dana's personality and just how he wants to run an offense. You guys don't agree. That's fine.
There is.
I know there's smoke that would come out of this. Totally get it.
Well, and you have to be cognizant of that, because you make a change at quarterback in Nebraska. I mean, you got to deal with that, and you got to deal with the family. I mean, it would have to be something drastic where Dylan is really, really poor. Yeah, I think it's more important.
That is the scenario I'm talking about.
The thing to Gary's point is the fact that this is not just Nebraska news. Dylan Ryle is notorious around the country for his Patrick Mahomes comparisons. This would be a social media firestorm. Oh, look, off-brand Patrick Mahomes.
But you can't be afraid. I'm saying as a program, you can't be afraid to make a change despite the blowback. Honestly, if it gets to that point, if you're a Nebraska fan, where you have to make a change, I mean, again, there's something bigger than you. It's about the program. It's about winning a ton of ball games this year, right? We've all said that year 3 is a monster opportunity. That's what counts above all.
Yeah, I think if you made a change this year, you would never go back. And that person that you made the change to would have to be either even with Dylan or better.
Sure. No, absolutely. But yes,
I think Dylan will be good this year, and they expect him to be great next year.
Sure.
But by the way, sorry, continue.
No, I was just going to say we're down the yellow brick road here of worst case scenario on it, and I think he'll be good this year. I think he'll be really spot on, and I think he'll be a reason they win. Honestly, I mean, he needs to be.
There's been a lot of questions in the stream chat. Who would be the first quarterback out of the bullpen? Marcus Davila is the name. I think is the backup this year. Can TJ Lateef take a step post spring? Yeah, it's possible. But I think based on what I've heard coming out of spring football, I think Davila is going to be the backup quarterback here in 2025. So that's
good frame, good mobility.
Yeah,
Dana guy. Yeah.
That's what the winds seem to be telling me coming out of spring football and out of summer. Could Lateef take a step? Absolutely. Freshmen can take big strides once they make it on campus, but I think Davila is the guy. Just to throw that out there.
Well, they both need to, and then you throw in the human victory cigar, who is technically the backup. I think it's important for Nebraska to play well against Akron and Houston Christian, where you can get some guys on the field because that might be, you're not going to have a lot of opportunities to play a backup where you feel good about the games in hand, but you need quality snaps, and I think that, that's something. But also there's another part of this year that last year really shows the durability of Dylan. Nebraska, for the first time, going back to quarterback that was mentioned earlier, had a guy start the entire season. It had been since Tanner Lee. And so Dylan started the entire season. And, do you roll, think it out loud. Could he do it 2 years in a row? And if he doesn't, if there's a game where he just physically can't go, and you already know that leading into the game, then we're about to find out who they have the most trust in behind him.
I just want to see guys get some extra snaps. And I know we've made college football the pro game, and the starter takes all the snaps all the way through the end to the kneel down. You still want to see, guys get out there in the college game and just get some quality snaps in case, you got to break the glass in case of emergency. Look at the Indiana game. As much as lopsided as that Nebraska-Indiana game was last year, Curtis Rourke, smashes his finger on a Husker helmet and, has to sit the fourth quarter, even though they were way ahead, and then missed a couple of games. I mean, freak things happen, and somebody's got to be ready. Somebody's got to get some seasoning in some way, and it's still college. Let guys get out there and play. The starter does not have to take 100% of the snaps based on whatever his contract says. Get backups in there, get them a couple series, and let them play.
Well, you need some experience. You do and learn and perform better by doing, and get them out there. Absolutely. No, for sure. Fellas, this is the final Sunday Live for a little bit. We're off next weekend with the weekend edition and then Sunday Live. You guys, I guess, can have a Sunday Live if you want. Heading elsewhere, but
Where are you heading, Schmitty?
we are going to go see Normandy and some World War II spots in Paris, going to Germany, and then we're going to Switzerland. So yeah,
And then Vegas
and then Vegas, and then Vegas.
for the first time.
Me and Junior are headed that way. My mom, Joe Mama's taking him on a senior trip. I got asked to go along, so yeehaw, we'll do that.
The chaperone.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't think yeehaw is something you say in Germany, but let's
Try
see
it.
what happens.
Anyone take German in high school or college? Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay,
Guten Tag.
sure.
Yeah. I took Spanish in college, German in high school. I remember a lot more of the German than the Spanish. The Spanish was
How do I say beer in German?
beer.
That's it. Okay. Beer.
B-I-E-R.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about pretzels?
God, that one I don't know. I know lemonade. That's Limo. I remember that one.
Okay. Mhm.
Very popular over there. You want to go to the movie theater? Kino.
Okay.
Oh.
So how about how much?
Well, enjoy your travels.
Yes.
And we won't have a
You'll-
show though next week, 4th of July weekend and all that.
Yeah,
So
so we have a best of come in on the 3rd on the radio side of things. Then Friday, Saturday, Sunday we're off, and we'll be back Monday. Elijah Herbel, Justice Rhodey for the weekday editions, and then I assume, gentlemen, Gary and Bill, I'm not sure what Schmitty's plans are. Saturday and Sunday will return to normal following that.
all right.
Yeah.
That works.
All right. Sharpie, be good, buddy. Appreciate you.
Thank
Bill,
you to
enjoy
everybody.
SEC country. Thank you much. Elijah, appreciate you, bud. And back at you next time with the weekend edition. And yes, Sunday Live of the Average Joe Sports Show. Like and subscribe. Tell a buddy. And then also find on Twitter, AJ Sports Radio. Talk to you next time.